Imagine finding a wallet packed with thousands of dollars, enough to flip your life, and no one is watching. This is Ihuoma's story, a broke, homeless orphan who chose truth over hunger. What came back to her will shock you. Stay with me. Let's jump into this powerful tale. If you're new here, hit subscribe and give this story a like. Rain came down in sharp sheets over Abuja, slicing the glow of far-off traffic into long streaks of red, yellow, and green. Ihuoma Nwosu, 17, thin, soaked to the bone, pressed her back against a locked kiosk along Amadu Bello Way. The corrugated shutter rattled whenever the wind rushed in from Jabi Lake, and the piece of cardboard she'd propped over her head flapped uselessly, as if it might abandon her too. On better nights, she could pretend the raindrops were stars, pretend the black road beneath her was only a dark sky she happened to be crossing. But tonight, the clouds felt sealed shut. That fit her life since the day dirt thumped onto her father's coffin 3 months ago. She remembered it clearly, her stepmother, Madame Bissy, standing by the grave in a bright crimson geel, eyes shining with practiced tears until the final amen. An hour later, those same eyes burned with contempt. "You should have followed him, witch." The words landed like a verdict. Within minutes, Ihuoma was a stranger on her own street, clutching a plastic bag with one worn dress, an old Bible, and the orphan hope of finishing senior secondary school. From that day, she drifted through the city like a ghost nobody prayed for. Daylight meant survival math. Was there enough for a sachet of water? Would a Kike rider toss her a half-eaten meat pie if she smiled just right? Night meant finding a dry ledge before drunks and scavengers claimed every doorway. It shocked her how fast a life could shrink to inches of concrete and the mercy of strangers. Yet even ghosts can hope. Around noon, tucked under the rusted lip of a newsstand, she caught a whisper running through passing conversations. A huge international trade fair had opened at Eagle Square. Big companies, pop-up kitchens, and maybe quick day jobs. One vendor needed 10 extra hands yesterday, someone said. Another was paying daily for leafleteers. If desperation had a taste, it tasted like a chance, Ihuoma thought, her belly twisting at the memory of yesterday's only meal, 2 bananas going brown. She set out on blistered feet, dodging taxis and Kikes coughing out smoke. By the time she reached the square, the place felt alive. Colorful banners snapped, Afro beats thumped from competing speakers, and the smell of suya tangled with cinnamon, chin-chin, and fuel. For a heartbeat, she forgot the hunger. Abuja's energy could trick anyone into feeling rich. Hope, though, is a hard lender. The first stall holder, a broad-shouldered man selling imported phones, barely let her finish. "Look at your dress, my dear. My customers will think I hire beggars," at a food truck she offered to wash plates. The chef shook his head and pointed at the laminated rules on the canopy. Hygiene permit required, no exceptions, and so it went. 12, 15, 18 stalls. Each no slammed another rusty nail into the hull of her hope. When the fairground floodlights blinked on and washed the dusk in hard white glare, Ihuoma drifted toward the exit, her heart tapping one line over and over, "Tomorrow, maybe tomorrow." She was weaving between wobbling stacks of empty crates when her left sandal brushed something soft yet firm. A black leather wallet lay face down on the wet concrete. She dropped to a knee without thinking. Life on the street had trained her eyes to spot value. A lost ring, a stray note, even a reusable bag. The leather felt rich, smooth under her fingers. She opened it and stared at 30 perfect $100 bills, crisp like hotel sheets she'd never afford. Her breath stalled. Pictures flashed in her mind: a narrow room with a real mattress, her own padlock on a wooden door, maybe a second-hand sewing machine purring by a window, a restart just like that. Her pulse thumped so loudly she almost missed the laminated ID tucked behind the cash until it slid out and fluttered to the ground. She grabbed it. A man in his mid-40s looked back, serious but magnetic, salt and pepper hair, eyes that said he owned the building you stood in. Chief Ibrahim Danjuma, the caption read, Chairman and CEO, Danjuma Group. Below, a Maitama address on Ghana Street shone in gold letters with a private phone number. A storm of thoughts crashed through her tired head. $3,000. By the parallel market rate, roughly 4.4 million naira. Enough to rent a clean Face Me, I Face You for 2 years, pay apprenticeship fees to learn tailoring properly, and still stock a small boutique with Ankara. Why not? Everyone out here lived on the scraps the rich dropped without noticing. Hadn't life already taken more from her than any lost wallet could take from him? But a quieter memory rose, tasting of mosquito nets and her late mother's soft voice. My child, money stacked on a stolen floor will always shake. She could almost feel her mother's rough thumb on her cheek. That steadied her breath. Still, conviction wouldn't fill her stomach tonight. She slid the wallet under the thin lining of her dress and pressed it to her ribs like it might sink into her chest. Then she walked, head down, until the bright fare faded and the real Abuja showed its rust and grit. She found cover against a plywood fence near Area 1 Bridge, hiding an old construction site. Iron rods clawing at the dark like begging fingers. She curled up, knees to chest, arms wrapped tight. The rain came harder, as if the clouds were arguing over her future. Water dripped through a gap and soaked her hair. Every logical reason to keep the cash marched through her mind in neat suits. Your stepmother will never haunt you again. You can buy peace. You can buy respect. But honesty sat beside her like a thin girl in torn slippers, whispering one line: you are still your mother's daughter. Ihuoma couldn't tell which voice hurt more, the quick rescue of easy money or the unbending whisper of truth. She dozed and woke shivering, dozed again, dreamed of oceans made of banknotes until a final thunderclap threw her into the gray of morning. Her choice arrived with daylight. She would return the wallet. Whatever came, came. The problem was clear. No fare, no airtime, no friend in Maitama. 30 kilometers of city lay between her and the address on the card. Feet already raw, heart already sore. Ihuoma rose into the thin, smoky dawn and whispered to the quiet sky, "Let my legs be enough." Then she stepped into the flooded road, the precious wallet strapped against her chest like a promise made of leather and fear. The night held its darkness, but somewhere inside her, one small light refused to die. The morning sun crawled up slowly, as if even the heavens were unsure about blessing another hard day. Abuja was already awake, horns blaring, sellers calling, taxis and keke grinding across wet streets. Ihuoma stood at the edge of Wu's market, stomach biting with hunger, arms folded tight as if she could hold herself together. Under her worn dress, the rich man's wallet pressed warm against her skin, heavy, not from cash, but from the battle it had started inside her. The market buzzed like a beehive. Traders lined both sides, pushing goods with hungry energy. Bright fabrics, cheap gadgets, sachets of pepper, imitation designer shoes. Somewhere a child cried. Somewhere else, two women fought over tomato prices. The city was loud and alive, but to Ihuoma, it all sounded far away, like a world she no longer belonged to. She took a slow breath and told herself, "You need transport." The address in Maitama, 12 Ghana Street, was not a place she could reach on foot. It sat across a bridge, across class lines, across a life she had only seen in glossy pages. But the bus fare from Area 1 to Maitama was 2,000 naira. Ihuoma had exactly 100. No airtime to call anyone, no phone at all. Just this wallet, this weight, this test. She started asking for help. "Excuse me, sir," she said to a man loading rice sacks onto a pickup. "Please, I need 2,000 naira for transport. I found something and must return it to the owner." The man wiped sweat, looked her over. "Found what?" She hesitated. "A wallet." His eyes narrowed. "With money?" "Yes, but I want to return it." He laughed and shook his head. "So God finally remembered you and you want to reject it? Use it and run from poverty. Nobody will help you like this again." Ihuoma's throat tightened. She moved to a woman selling plantain chips. "Please, Ma, just 2,000 naira. I want to return something valuable." "I found," the woman squinted. "Return to who?" "A man in Maitama. I found his wallet." The woman blinked, then laughed, shaking her head. "You're not serious. You're this poor, and you want to return a rich man's money. You like suffering, Abi? Maybe your head no correct." Another woman nearby chimed in. "Let me see the wallet first." Ihuoma stepped back fast. "No, I only need help to get there." "Then use your legs and go," the woman hissed, turning away. She roamed the market for hours, asking, explaining, hoping one kind soul would understand. All she met were laughs, waving hands, and hard stares. By noon, her hope had dried up. She sank beside a gutter, tired and angry. "What if they're right?" a voice inside whispered. "What if this is your blessing? Why return it to someone who already has everything?" She looked at the wallet again. Her hand shook as she opened it. The dollars lay there, clean, crisp, waiting. She could rent a small place in Lugba. Start again, eat 3 times a day, find peace. Her stomach moaned. She hadn't eaten in almost 2 days. Her slippers were torn. Her body still ached from sleeping on bare concrete in the rain. "This is mercy," a voice told her. "God has finally remembered you." But another voice, gentler and firmer, rose inside. "If you take what is not yours, how will your story stay clean?" She saw her mother's hands in her mind, hands that mended uniforms, hands that held her close on stormy nights, hands that slapped her once for lying. "I'm not a thief," Ihuoma whispered, "even if I'm hungry." She stood. The choice was made. She would walk to Maitama. With blistered feet and only a rough map in her head, she set out. No Google Maps, no phone, just memory from an old school trip and a stubborn heart. She moved through Area 1, then the central area, skirting bridge edges, asking for directions at each turn. Some ignored her, some shrugged. One Kiki rider joked, "If you want to reach Maitama with leg, you need Elijah's spirit." She managed a small smile. "Then let that spirit carry me." She walked as if gold lay on her chest. In a way, it did. Not just money, but a conscience she refused to sell. As the sun dipped, Abuja turned to amber and shadows. Her legs shook, her skin itched with sweat and dust, and still she walked. That night, she slept under a tree beside an empty shed. Hugging her small bag like treasure, mosquitoes came, hunger came, but so did peace. and that was enough to lift her at sunrise. She kept going, driven not by fear of lack, but by the simple push to do what was right, even if it made no sense to anyone else. 2 voices had spoken, and she had picked the harder one. By the second evening, her feet had swollen inside her slippers. Every step sent pain up her legs. Her mouth was dry. Her vision blurred now and then. Sun, dust, and grime had darkened her skin. Still she moved. People stared as she trudged through Woos 2 and Bannex. Some watched with mild curiosity. Others turned away. A few stepped aside like she was carrying a disease. Her back burned from the weight of her bag. Worse than the bag was the wallet pressed tight against her chest. It wasn't only cash. It was a test, a furnace in her ribs. At midday on the 3rd day, after crossing streets crowded with SUVs and sirens, Ihuoma reached Maitama. She knew she was close because the city had changed clothes. No noisy markets, no cracked paint. Here, glass towers rose over clipped lawns. Palms lined guarded gates. Even the air smelled rich. Shoes clicked with purpose on the sidewalks. Ihuoma looked down at her own. One slipper torn, toes dust-caked, and her heart beat faster. She approached a security man outside a luxury cafe and showed him the card from the wallet. "Please," she said, voice dry, "where is this place?" He studied the card, then looked her over. "This is Ghana Street." "That address isn't far from here," he said, then paused to look her over. "Who exactly are you going to see?" She hesitated. "Chief Danjuma." The man chuckled, handed back the card, and warned, "Be careful around here." "They don't like surprises." Ihuoma thanked him and kept moving. Her feet trembled. She wasn't only tired, she was afraid. What if they didn't believe her? What if they called her a thief? What if this whole walk ended in handcuffs? Or worse? She reached number 12 Ghana Street and stopped before the biggest gate she had ever seen. Black iron bars, gold-plated initials in the center. D cameras watched from every corner. The walls looked high enough to scrape the sky. She stood a long moment, unsure. Ring the bell? Shout? Would they even let her speak? Her reflection in the polished metal made her flinch. Dust-streaked face, dry, tangled hair. She didn't look like anyone who belonged at a billionaire's door. Still, she raised a shaking finger and pressed the intercom. A voice crackled, "Yes." She leaned close. "Please, I need to speak to Chief Danjuma. It's important, A beat." "And who are you?" I found something that belongs to him. A wallet. I came to return it." Silence. Then, "Hold on." Minutes dragged. A small side gate clicked, and 2 uniformed guards stepped out. Their eyes swept her from head to toe. One scoffed, "So you the claim say you get wet and belong to Oga?" She nodded quickly, heart racing. "Yes, please. I just want to return it." I found his wallet. The second guard laughed over her words. "Abby, you see wallet for gutter and one use am enter paradise." They both chuckled. Ihuoma didn't. She reached under her dress and carefully brought out the wallet. This is his? I only want to hand it back." The guards traded looks. One stepped in to snatch it. "No," she said, jumping back. "I must give it to him myself. Please, just tell him I'm here." The first guard narrowed his eyes. "You know they hear English?" "Oga, know they see dirty people where they find miracle. If you no drop am now in Waka, we go call police." She said nothing. The gate slammed. She stood there, shaking head to toe. Her stomach rumbled again. She hadn't eaten in over a day. Her knees felt like they could fold, but she would not go. Not until she saw him. Even as the sky dimmed and a chill breeze rolled in, Ihuoma stayed by the gate. She sat on the cold pavement, hugging the wallet to her chest. People passed, stared, whispered. She no longer cared. At some point, she dozed off, back against the wall, head tilted, the moon keeping quiet watch. Night was cruel again. No food, no blanket, only crickets and the occasional roar of a car. She woke just before dawn to a splash from a sweeping hose on her foot. A street cleaner muttered, "Go find your house, Jerry." But Ihuoma didn't move. As the first gold of morning stretched across Maitama's streets, number 12's gates finally groaned open. A line of dark-tinted SUVs rolled out slowly. Ihuoma rose. Her whole body ached, but her will did not. She stepped forward and planted herself in front of the lead SUV. Tires screeched, horns blasted, guards rushed out shouting, "Clear the road! Are you mad? Move!" She didn't budge. Then the car door clicked open and the man himself stepped out. He wore a tailored gray suit, glasses resting on the bridge of his nose, hair neatly combed. It was him, the same face from the ID card, the same eyes, the same person. Ihuoma's heart kicked. "Who are you?" Chief Danjuma asked, voice steady and firm. Her mouth opened, but no sound came at first. She could only stare at the man whose life she had carried across Abuja like something fragile. Then she stretched out the wallet with both hands, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is yours, sir?" Chief Danjuma stood without speaking, eyes on the thin, dust-streaked girl who had just stopped his luxury convoy. The morning sun had only begun to warm Maitama's streets, but the heat in the air couldn't match the tension hanging over number 12 Ghana Street. Ihuoma stood on shaking legs, the wallet held out like an offering. Her arms burned from fear and exhaustion. She had walked 2 days through Abuja's sprawl, hungry, mocked, turned away, just to reach this point. And now she faced the man whose name and photo had lived in her mind since the moment she found that leather wallet at the fair. He didn't take it immediately. He studied her, not rudely, but closely. His gaze moved across her face, her clothes, her sun-browned skin, her trembling fingers. She looked like a street girl, yes, but something in her stance, in the way she refused to shrink, made him pause. One bodyguard leaned in. "Sir, should we—" Danjuma lifted a hand. "No?" He stepped forward, took the wallet gently, and looked at it as if seeing it new. He opened it with care, checking everything. All 30 bills were still there, his ID untouched. Even the emergency card hidden behind the last fold remained. His eyes returned to her. "You found this?" She nodded. "At the trade fair 3 days ago. I didn't know how to reach you at first. I walked here." "You walked?" "Yes, sir," she said, voice catching. "No one would give me transport money, but I had to bring it back." "It wasn't mine." The Maybach gave a puzzled little honk. The rest of the convoy idled in place, engines humming for instructions. Chief Danjuma waved them toward the gate. "Cancel the trip?" "But sir," the head guard began, "you have a meeting in the central business district." "Cancel it," Danjuma said, firm. "Something more important is at my gate." He turned to Ihuoma. "Come in." Her eyes widened. "Sir, inside?" "You've earned a bath, a chair, and a proper meal before anything else." The mansion gates eased open like a slow reveal, and Ihuoma followed Danjuma into a world she never dreamed she'd enter. The compound felt like a private kingdom. Lawns cut with military neatness, rose bushes trimmed into perfect balls, a broad fountain in the center throwing water into the morning light like glass. The main house rose ahead like a palace. Marble columns, glass walls, a long drive of interlocking bricks so spotless it felt wrong to step on them with dusty feet. Inside, the air was cool and carried a soft, expensive fragrance. Ihuoma barely saw the beauty. She was fighting to stay upright. Her legs wobbled from hunger, her lips trembled. A maid appeared at the foot of the staircase, took one look at her, and flinched. Without turning, Danjuma said, "Take her to the guest room. Run a warm bath. Bring food, something solid. She's been walking for days." The maid hesitated. "Sir, she's very dirty." "I know," he said quietly. "That's why I said bath." He looked at Ihuoma. "Go with her. We'll talk." When you've rested, Ihuoma followed the maid up the wide marble staircase, limbs numb and mind spinning. For a moment, she wondered if this was a dream, that she had collapsed outside the gate and everything since was a hunger-made illusion. Then the bathwater's warmth made her gasp. It was real. For the first time in years, soap foamed richly in her hands. The film of days-old grime lifted, and her skin slowly found its true shade again. The maid, who introduced herself as Ejiro, brought clothes, simple, clean cotton, far better than anything Ihuoma had worn in months. Then came the food, a steaming plate of jollof rice, 2 grilled chicken thighs, and a tall glass of cold malt. She didn't cry. She only stared a heartbeat, stunned, and then whispered the prayer her mother taught her. "Thank you, Lord, for daily bread and for those kind enough to share it." When she finished, they led her to a lounge with plush chairs and wide windows opening over the city's green hills. Chief Danjuma waited there, fresh in a navy suit, a glass of water in hand. He studied her, not with suspicion, but with careful interest. "What is your name?" he asked. "Ihuoma Nwore." "Your parents?" "My father died 3 months ago. My mother passed when I was 10. You've been on the street since your father's burial?" She nodded. "His wife. She called me a witch and threw me out. I had nowhere to go." Danjuma's jaw tightened, though his voice stayed calm. "And even with all that pain, you still brought this wallet back?" She looked down. "I almost didn't. One voice told me to keep it, but another, my mother's, always said, 'We may be poor, but we are not thieves.'" Silence held the room a long moment. Then he said something she did not expect. "I believe you." Ihuoma's head snapped up. "You do?" "Yes, and I respect you, Ihuoma." She blinked, unsure. "But I'm nobody, sir." He smiled slightly. "That may be how the world sees you, but some nobodies carry more light than 100 somebodies." He rose. "Rest now. Tomorrow, I'll tell you what comes next." That night, she slept in a real bed under soft sheets, with no leaks above her head. She didn't know what morning would bring or what Chief Danjuma truly planned. She only knew this: for the first time in years, she felt human again, and deep inside, something small and tender began to open. Hope. Sunlight slid through the cool, arched windows, warming the cream duvet where she lay. For a moment, she didn't move, not from pain, but from fear of waking to find it all imagined. She had slept straight through. No Danfo shouts, no mosquitoes whining, no gutter stench, only quiet, clean linen and the soft hum of air conditioning. Her body still ached from the trek, swollen feet, sore shoulders, but her spirit felt lighter. She rose slowly and stepped to the mirror. The girl looking back wasn't the one who begged and slept on concrete. Her skin was clean, her hair newly braided into neat cornrows by the housemaid, and the simple lavender dress sat well on her frame. For the first time in her life, she looked dignified. A gentle knock cut through her thoughts. "Come in," she said. Ejiro entered with a breakfast tray, hot yam porridge, sliced mangoes, and a glass of fresh juice. "Olga is waiting for you," she said with a smile. "When you're done eating, he'll receive you in the study." "Thank you," Ihuoma replied softly. She ate slowly, grateful, and kept wondering what kind of man cancels a full day just to hear a homeless girl out. Something about Chief Danjuma still didn't add up. He hadn't behaved like the rich men she imagined. No pride, no distrust, only steady calm and curiosity. She braced her heart. Whatever came next, she would not regret her choice. The study felt steeped in history. Dark wooden shelves wrapped the walls, packed with law texts, framed plaques, and old photo albums. A large oil portrait of an older woman, regal, unsmiling, hung behind the desk. Ihuoma paused, caught by those eyes. "That was my mother," Danjuma said from behind. "She taught me everything I know about people." Ihuoma turned, greeted him respectfully. He motioned to the chair opposite. She sat, pulse drumming in her ears. He laced his fingers on the polished desk. "I want to thank you again, Ihuoma." Returning that wallet wasn't normal. It was rare. "I only did what I believed was right, sir," she said, "even when you had every reason not to." She nodded. "Yes, sir." Danjuma leaned back. "Tell me your whole story, from the start. You said your father passed recently, and your stepmother Ihuoma hesitated, then let it out. How her mother died when she was little. How her father remarried a woman who never truly accepted her. How she loved school, dreamed of becoming a teacher. How everything collapsed the day they lowered her father into the ground. She called me a witch," Ihuoma whispered, eyes wet. "Said I caused all their problems. She burned my books and chased me out with only a nylon bag." Danjuma's jaw tightened, his face unreadable. "I begged for help," Ihuoma went on. "I tried odd jobs, cleaning, washing plates, selling snacks, but it never covered anything. I slept in stalls and behind kiosks. And when I found your wallet," she looked up, "for a moment I thought God finally remembered me. Maybe it was a miracle to save me, but you didn't keep it," he said gently. "No," she answered, "because I remembered what my mother told me before she died. No matter how hard life hits you, don't steal another person's peace. That money wasn't mine, and I wanted to sleep at night without fear in my chest." The silence stretched. Danjuma studied her with new eyes, as if he wasn't seeing a street girl anymore, but something rare, something clean. He stood and stared out the window. "You know, Ihuoma, many people go through life in masks. They smile while being cruel. They give only to control. But you," he turned back, voice softer, "you returned something valuable when the world had given you nothing." She blinked away tears. "I wasn't looking for a reward. I just wanted to do the right thing." He nodded slowly. "That is exactly why you deserve one." She looked up, startled. "Sir, this isn't charity," he said. "I see potential, grit, integrity. I can't say what your future holds, but I know it shouldn't be street corners and cold nights." That ends now. Ihuoma had no words. You need schooling, stability, confidence, and most of all, a chance to choose your future instead of only surviving it. He pulled a file from the desk and opened it. Paper she couldn't read from where she sat lay inside. "I'm enrolling you in a personal development program, courses, mentorship, and in time, work experience in one of my companies." Ihuoma blinked, stunned. "But But I don't have certificates." "You have the one thing money can't buy," Danjuma replied, "a clear conscience." His eyes drifted for a moment, as if touching an old wound. "The world rarely rewards people like you," he said softly, "but I will." Ihuoma's voice thinned. "Why are you this kind to me?" He gave a small smile. "Maybe kindness is the only thing wealth is truly good for." That evening, Ihuoma stood on the guest suite balcony staring over Jabi Lake. She felt both overwhelmed and calm. She couldn't guess what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. A quiet question rose inside her. Who exactly was Chief Danjuma? And why did one lost wallet matter so much to him? She didn't know the answer was already on its way, and that it would reshape her life. At dawn, she stood again at the balcony rail, the Abuja sky wide and gold, no longer heavy, but opening. The house moved faintly around her, soft footsteps, uniforms, the hush of a careful mansion, but she barely heard it. Her mind drifted over the road she had walked, the taunts she'd endured, the locked-up grief she carried like a sealed box. She still could not believe she was here. "Ihuoma," a gentle voice called. She turned. Chief Danjuma approached in a crisp white shirt and dark trousers, a mug of tea in his hand, his face softer than yesterday, almost fatherly. "Good morning, sir," she said, stepping back with respect. He nodded with a faint smile. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, sir." "Thank you. Come. Breakfast on the terrace. I asked the chef to make something special." Minutes later, they sat at a glass table under a flowering trellis. Fresh paw, steaming yam and egg sauce, a basket of golden akara, and a jug of chilled zobo were set out neatly. Ihuoma ate quietly, unsure how to act around a billionaire. Danjuma didn't rush her. He sipped his tea and watched kindly from across the table. Then, in an even tone, he said, "You're likely wondering why I'm doing all this." She looked up slowly, spoon midway. "Yes, sir." "I've been wondering." He set his cup down. "Good. You deserve to know." He leaned back, fingers interlaced. 2 years ago, I lost my mother, Mama Nena, the strongest, wisest person I knew. She used to tell me, "Don't weigh a person by their money, weigh them by their conscience." Ihuoma listened, breath held. "She died suddenly, a heart attack," he said quietly. "It broke me. For weeks I couldn't think or work. The house felt empty. For the first time in a long while, I began to examine not only her life, but my own." He stood and walked to the balcony edge. "Her death made me question the world I moved in, the people around me, my staff, my partners. So I designed an unusual experiment. I took one of my old wallets, put $3,000 inside, hundreds, and slipped in my ID card. Then I left it in a public place." Ihuoma's eyes widened. "You dropped it on purpose?" He nodded. "Yes, I wanted to see if anyone would return it, not because they had to, but because they wanted to." "And did anyone?" she asked carefully. He turned, meeting her gaze. "Not one. For 26 straight months, I placed a wallet in a crowd, sometimes in malls, sometimes at airports, sometimes on the street. Each time I waited, I left my phone number, my address, everything needed to get it back to me." He paused. No one did. Ihuoma's heart thudded. "I wasn't angry," he added, "just sad, disappointed. I began to wonder if Mama Nena was wrong, that maybe people no longer chose the right thing when no one was watching." He returned to the table and sat facing her. "Until you." The pause between them felt like held breath. "You, Ihuoma," he went on, are the first person in more than 2 years to bring that wallet back. You had every reason to keep it. You had nothing, yet you still chose what was right." Ihuoma's eyes widened. Her mouth fell open. You were testing people?" "I was searching for someone whose soul still carried truth," he said. "You passed a test you didn't even know was there. That's why I canceled my meeting. That's why I brought you inside." She dropped her gaze, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "Your actions already said enough," he replied. He slid open a drawer beneath the table and set a white envelope before her. Ihuoma stared. "What is this?" "A cashier's check, $1 million. She gasped. "Sir, no, I can't." "You can," he cut in, gentle but firm. "And you will. This isn't charity. It's a reward. It's seed for the future you deserve." Tears ran down Ihuoma's cheeks. I don't know anything about handling money." "Which is why you won't be alone," he said. "You'll have mentors, a place to live, and you'll work, not as a house help, but as a manager in training in one of my companies in Abuja. We'll train you, guide you, because what you carry, your honesty, your heart, is something the richest men can't buy." Ihuoma covered her face and cried softly, not from sorrow, but from shock, relief, and gratitude. "You are the kind of person my mother prayed still existed," Chief Danjuma said gently. "You reminded me that character survives in places the world ignores." He rose and walked toward the balcony. The breeze lifted his shirt. "Many who found those wallets failed the conscience test. But you didn't just pass. You made me keep believing Ihuoma stood," her voice unsteady. "Thank you, sir. Thank you. I don't deserve this, but I'll make you proud." "I promise." Danjuma turned and smiled. "I know you will, Ihuoma." I never doubted it. That night, lying in the same bed, no longer a visitor, but someone with a tomorrow, Ihuoma whispered a quiet prayer to her mother. "Mama, I didn't take what wasn't mine, and somehow that's how I found everything I'd been seeking." She closed her eyes, and for the first time in her life, the stars felt like they were shining for her. The envelope rested on the table like a sleeping dragon, its silent weight hinting at power she had never imagined. She kept her eyes on it while Chief Danjuma spoke with his private banker on the terrace, finalizing the transfer. Morning light spilled across the lagoon, gilding the water, and for a moment she wondered if the city had always been this beautiful, or if grace had sharpened her sight overnight. When Danjuma returned, his smile was open. "All set. The check will clear before close of business, and the Naira equivalent will appear in an account under your name." He handed her a slim folder. "These are the deeds to a furnished 2-bedroom flat in Jabi, Abuja, 5 minutes from Danjuma Group headquarters." Ihuoma opened the folder carefully, half expecting the paper to crumble like a dream. Her name, Ihuoma Nwoko, was printed in clean serif type. For years, she had feared that name would wash from the world like chalk in rain. Now it was inked beside the words "registered owner." "Why Abuja?" she asked, voice small. "Because Lagos is where you survived," Danjuma said, "and Abuja is where you will thrive. The property team there needs fresh eyes. I can teach skill. I cannot teach conscience." Her heart fluttered. "What if I fail?" "You walked roughly 30 kilometers in torn slippers to do what's right," he answered. "Failure needs less courage than that." A doorway to tomorrow stood open. The next week moved like a scene from a bus conductor's pirated DVD. A tailor took her measurements for navy blue power suits. A finishing school coach taught her how to wear them. Shoulders back, chin up, walk like you belong. Mornings were spent with a private tutor revising mathematics and business communication. Afternoons, she shadowed Chief Danjuma in meetings where millions shifted with the stroke of a pen. On Wednesday, the Danjuma Group Board met for its quarterly review. Executives filled the glass-walled conference room, some curious, some doubtful, as Danjuma walked in with Ihuoma at his side. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "meet Miss Nwoko, incoming Community Development Manager for Abuja. She will lead our affordable housing program." A low murmur ran along the polished table. A gray-bearded economist cleared his throat. "With respect, sir, this is sudden, isn't it?" Danjuma's answer was calm but firm. "Sudden integrity is still integrity. She has my full authority." Ihuoma lifted her chin, recalling the lesson. Fear bends the neck, purpose straightens it. She spoke steadily. "Affordable housing isn't charity. It's stability. No city can rise tall on cardboard foundations." The room fell quiet, not because every mind agreed, but because every ear was held. Danjuma's eyes warmed as if saying, "Mother, you were right. Conscience still walks these streets, sometimes barefoot. New keys, old shadows." 2 weeks later, Ihuoma turned the key to her flat in Abuja. The scent of fresh paint and cedar shelves greeted her like a choir. The living room windows framed a hazy view of Aso Rock. The fridge hummed softly, stocked with groceries she hadn't bought. She laughed, a bright, surprised sound, and then tears came without warning. Gratitude can be as heavy as grief. She sat on the tiles and let the waves pass until the ache softened. Only then did she notice a small parcel on the counter, brown paper, no stamp, tied with twine. Inside was a worn paperback of Jane Eyre and a handwritten note. "For evenings when courage feels lonely." Signed, A. She traced the single initial with a trembling finger. In that simple gift, Chief Danjuma showed he knew that money feeds the body, but stories still feed the soul. A test reversed. October arrived with Harmattan's dry breath, and Ihuoma's first major assignment took her to Kubwa on the city's northern edge. She stepped from the company SUV in sensible heels, clipboard in hand, to inspect a rundown estate marked for renewal. Children chased a punctured football over cracked asphalt. Women cooked at makeshift stoves outside leaking flats. It mirrored the street she had escaped, only now she faced it as a problem solver, not a statistic. Midway through the tour, an 8-year-old darted past and an envelope slipped from his pocket. Instinct moved her. "Hey, you dropped something?" She picked it up, school fees neatly banded. The boy's eyes flew wide. He grabbed it, mumbled, "Thanks," and sprinted off. No inner battle this time. Integrity wasn't a battleground anymore. It was muscle memory. That night on her balcony, journal open, she saw how Danjuma's test had flipped. He once placed temptation in her path to find honesty. Today, life placed honesty in her path to prove growth. The stepmother's door takes strange routes. One morning, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. An elderly neighbor from her old Mushin street whispered that her stepmother, Nkechi, had fallen ill. Shock mixed with something she couldn't name. Was it pity, anger, duty? She asked for 2 days' leave and flew to Lagos. The compound looked smaller than she remembered, paint peeling like scabs. Nkechi lay on a mat in the parlor, eyes sunken. When she recognized Ihuoma, well-fed, neatly dressed, fear flickered across her face. "Have you come to curse me?" she croaked. Ihuoma knelt and held the frail hand that once shoved her into the night. "I came to forgive you," she said. From her handbag, she brought out a glossy leaflet for a private clinic and a deposit slip. "You will get treatment. No one deserves pain." Tears slipped down in Keiichi's cheeks. Redemption isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet handshake between past and present, witnessed only by walls that remember every harsh word. 6 months after her appointment, Ihuoma stood before a row of pastel townhouses, the first phase of Rose Gardens, named for her late mother. Families queued for keys. Reporters jostled. The Minister of Housing spoke about public-private partnership, but the crowd waited for the young manager whose story had gone viral, a Cinderella tale retold on blogs and breakfast shows across Nigeria. Ihuoma stepped to the podium. The December sun beat down. Cameras flashed. She didn't read from notes. "I once slept on cardboard beside Idumota Bridge," she began. Gasps rippled. Hearing it was different from reading it. "A stranger's kindness lifted me. Today, these homes prove that kindness is an investment that pays compound interest." She raised the ceremonial scissors, cut the ribbon, and the doors swung wide. Children whooped, racing down freshly painted corridors that smelled of promise, not mildew. Their laughter rose like a choir. Ihuoma caught Chief Danjuma's eye in the front row. He nodded once, and in that nod she felt a blessing. Test passed. Purpose embraced. That evening, Danjuma hosted a small rooftop celebration over the Abuja skyline. Fairy lights twinkled. A saxophonist played soft high life. As guests toasted the project, he led Ihuoma to the parapet. "I have something for you," he said, producing a slim leather case, the same make as the wallet she once returned. Her stomach fluttered. "Another test?" "No." He opened it. Inside lay a single brass key on a velvet cushion. "Board approval came in today. You're now Director of Community Impact nationwide. The key is symbolic. It opens every site office we own." He paused, eyes bright in the city glow. "Use it wisely." She closed the case and pressed it to her chest. "I'll do my very best." "Your best changed my life," Danjuma said softly, "and my mother, wherever she is, can rest easy." Later, long after the last guest had gone, Ihuoma stood alone at the railing. The once starless sky now glittered with distant fires. She remembered rain beating on corrugated iron, the voice that said, "Keep it," and the louder whisper that said, "Don't." If she had yielded then, she might have slept on silk bought with another man's sorrow. But she would never have known this deeper luxury, a life without fear of being found out. She opened the case again and let the key catch the moonlight. In its gleam, she saw a map of possibilities: scholarships for market children, mobile clinics for forgotten towns, mentorship for girls called witch by those who feared their brightness. Pocketing the key, she lifted her face to the heavens. The breeze carried a familiar mix of jasmine and city dust, and for the first time since childhood, she felt entirely, unshakably safe. "Thank you, Mama," she whispered. "Your daughter kept her hands clean." The lagoon was distant now, and the cardboard bed only a memory, but one truth still stood firm. Real wealth isn't counted in cash returned or dollars earned. It shines from a conscience that refuses to be buried. Beneath that wide, glittering sky, Ihuoma, once a homeless orphan, now a maker of homes, smiled toward a future she had finally claimed as her own. The lesson is clear. Integrity opens doors. Money cannot. Ihuoma's honesty, bravery, and compassion show that character outweighs circumstance. True riches are found in lifting others, forgiving freely, and doing right even when it costs. When hope follows conscience, the reward lasts. Goodness may be ignored for a while, but it never stays unseen forever. Thanks for watching this story. Share your thoughts and the lessons you picked in the comments. We'd love to read them. And great news! Another powerful, educative story drops in a few days. Please subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you'll be first to watch. And if this touched you, hit the like button and share it with family and friends. God bless you.